Front and Center. Front and Center. A focus on important and significant developments affecting the lives of Filipinos, not only in the Philippines, but also those living and working around the world. Join us in Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Welcome to Front and Center, where we focus on developments in the Philippines, legislation that provides policies and directions that strives to promote a better economy for the country, issues that concern the welfare and well-being of every Filipino. All of these and more will be Front and Center. You can watch this program on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. That's Radyo Pilipinas World Service. This program, Front and Center, can also be heard on the following shortwave frequencies. That's 9.475 MHz, 15.640 MHz, and 17.820 MHz. So join us for another edition of Front and Center with your host, Jerome Toledo. So my guest today is the well-known economist, as we will talk about the latest inflation rate, that's for February 2025, plus the labor situation, and at the same time the labor force survey of the Philippine Statistics Authority has just released, and as well as the raging trade war that will affect the global economy. And joining me now via Zoom is the chief economist of the Rizal Commercial Banking Corporation, Michael Ricafort. So, Michael, thank you for joining us in the program.
So much, Mr. Jerome, and your viewers for having me.
Okay, so let me start here. So, as the Philippines inflation rate continued to slow down in February 2025, which is at in a single digit, the government pledged to continue its proactive efforts to ensure adequate food supplies in the short term while steadily raising agricultural products. So, as an economist, Michael, do you share the same view of the government in pledging to ensure the adequate food supply while raising the agricultural productivity to address the inflation?
Yeah, that's it's the core of it. Enabled to really structurally solve the challenges that the country and the world have been facing for the past 3 years. The peculiar factor in the Philippines is to really boost productivity, output at lower costs, enabled to bring down prices. And of course, the challenge there, we have exogenous factors that are beyond our control, like the typhoons, the storms. But of course, there's always prevention and disaster management, calamity management. We have seen that also. But yeah, it's a challenge. But yeah, that's one way really to solve it in a more sustainable way to really boost productivity. And we have seen already measures to bring down prices.
I
Like,
see.
good thing the rice prices have gone down in the world market to the lowest in more than 3 years since
Yes.
November of
And
2021.
and that's what NEDA said. Apart of the tariffs that they have implemented to bring down the prices, as well as the continued deceleration of rice prices in the world market. And also, I'd like to mention this, Michael, for our listeners abroad. The inflation rate for February this year is from 2.1%, down from 2.9% in January 2025. So how the government will address this, or how the government should maintain the low inflation rate?
Yeah, actually, it's a pleasant surprise. The market was expecting like 2.5 to 2.6, and of course, it's way better than the previous month's 2.9%. So now the key drivers. First, yeah, it's still rise. We have seen at least the the price caps, the maximum suggested retail price has been
Mm-hmm.
there already since January 20, and also the food uh the food emergency, the declaration of which and the both factors, both measures really aim to further bring down local prices of rice, especially the imported ones, because we already saw the reduced tariff since early July. The import tariff rate reduced to 15% from 35%. That's an outright 20% discount. So it's really ensuring now that the mass market, the consumers, would benefit from the reduced prices of rice with the reduction in tariff and at the same time the reduction in the world price, because rice accounts for 9% of the economy. So that's one on rice.
Uh-huh.
Secondly, we have better weather conditions already. So well, that's clearly manifested. Look at tomatoes. 2 to 3 months ago, especially during the holiday season till around January, prices of tomatoes were very expensive, very high. And then suddenly, well, because it's aftermath of the typhoons, the storm damage. Then suddenly, there's this overproduction. Just give it a few weeks. There's now a glut. We saw that just a few days ago, in the latter part of February, and to the point that some farmers are just throwing away the excess production. So it's really, there are still gaps that need to work out, because well, we to avoid those extreme scenarios from very high prices because of the storm damage, and suddenly there's this overproduction that's of course not beneficial for the farmers. So it's
Okay.
really, the gaps would involve, first the digitization. Eventually, the agriculture would go there.
Mm-hmm.
It's now democratized, the marketplaces. So, but give it some time, that's why some of the fintechs, they're targeting farmers, because that's the biggest growth in digitization, biggest opportunity. Once these farmers learn that, although a lot of them are relatively older and maybe the next generation of farmers, yeah, that's a greatest potential eventually. It's bridging the buyers and the sellers. Now the challenge now is logistics, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the buyers and sellers, they come from different provinces, regions, sometimes far away. So now
Okay.
that would be the key
Okay.
opportunity. There
Let
would
me
be a
cut you
solution to
there,
that. Yeah.
Michael. Sorry to interrupt. So you mentioned earlier about the oversupply of tomatoes, and which farmers experienced in the last few weeks. So would that affect the inflation rate with the oversupply of commodities like tomatoes or some agricultural products?
Yeah, they did. Sir Jerome, we see some easing also.
Mm-hmm.
That's clearly manifested by tomatoes, some vegetables. Although I just look at the index itself, it's still, well, there's still some pickup in prices on
Mm-hmm.
overall on the average, because because it would take time for the other commodities and other agricultural products to experience and enjoy the better weather conditions. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
well, La Nina is still expected till the first quarter, so there would be some rains. But so far, so good. We didn't see large storm damage when we crossed the New Year. So, and that's good news for food, for agricultural products. In terms of more supply, there are rains compared to a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
There was El Nino, there was drought, and that was a key factor for higher prices also since early last year. Now, yeah, there would be more output. As clearly, there would be some vegetables, some fruits, agricultural products that would have a similar manifestation as what happened to tomatoes. So that's one.
Uh-huh.
And well, hopefully the better weather conditions. Then also, well, another factor also on lower inflation is the stronger peso. Now we're enjoying it. No? The peso is like doing the strongest in like almost 5 months since October. So that would be good, because
Mm-hmm.
from 59, the record high was 59. Last time we saw that was last December 19,
Mm-hmm.
and last January it was also near 59. Now it's lower by like more than 150. 1 peso, more than 1 peso and 50 centavos.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's even more, because it's doing around 57.30 levels right now.
Uh-huh.
Yesterday, it was like, uh, well, yeah, 50, as low as 50, near 57.10 yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So, that would lead to lower prices of imported items, because the Philippines is a net importing country. It would lower importation costs, and it would lower, well, imports like oil,
Mm-hmm.
we import a lot of commodities, even some rice and
Mm.
vehicles and many other imported
I
items,
see.
both
Okay.
raw materials and finished goods. So
Uh-huh.
that's good news.
Mm-hmm.
That's a welcome
All right.
development also. So we
Sir
will
Mike.
see further easing of inflation.
Sir Mike, you mentioned about the exchange rate. Yeah, I agree with you that the peso to dollar exchange rate went down from 59 to almost 60 in the past few months, down to 57. So, what is the safest range of the exchange rate that we can correlate to a inflation rate?
You know, when it was doing close to 59, last time we saw that
Mm-hmm.
around between November to January, we saw higher inflation when the dollar peso was near 59 and near those record levels. So now it's much lower now at 57 levels, around 57.30. That would be favorable in terms of lower importation costs because that's like 3% reduction in just the
Mm-hmm.
well just the conversion itself. Whenever importers pay in US dollars, just the exchange of money, that's already a savings of close to 3%. So that's good
Mm,
news. That's one of the factors actually that also drove the 2.1% inflation
I see.
that we saw. Because the peso already strengthened also in the latter part of January. Because why? What happened in January? January was, the worst. All of the worst things. We may have already seen them, whether it's in the US or here, last January. Prior and normally, that's during the time when US President Trump was inaugurated, January 30.
Mm,
We already saw the worst in everything. The worst in the dollar peso, even in the US, the highest in the 10-year treasury yields. Oh, so now, yeah, well, the Trump factor now would be a consideration going forward. What would be the impact on the Philippines, on the economy itself, on prices, and etc. Now, yeah, primarily the tariffs in the US would lead to higher inflation there. That would be felt
mm,
directly by the Americans.
I
But
see.
here in the Philippines, the protectionist policies, because Trump is proposing now. Well, at least he's not, as it turned out, he's not that hard line on the tariff.
I
So
see.
he's now giving some leeway. And now, the next step is proposing a reciprocal tariff with many other countries around the world, both
Okay.
allies or foes
All right.
alike.
Mm-hmm.
So it may have an impact on the Philippines. If
Well,
the Philippines, yeah,
yeah. Well, Michael, my take on this data on the ground, the price is still high, though the prices might be marked down, yet it is still not felt by ordinary Filipinos. Not to mention that inflation rate may accelerate or decelerate. So, is the low inflation rate still workable?
yeah, it is. Well, actually, that's true. From a practical standpoint, if you ask an ordinary person, they would still say prices are still expensive. Yes, it's still expensive. But the thing is, they're not increasing as fast anymore. It could have been much expensive if there were no measures to control it. But that's the reality.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, international convention, you need to you compare the growth in the economy, the growth in incomes. That's like the average growth in the economy is towards 6%. No? Last year it was 5.6%. It's the growth in incomes, the growth in the economy is much faster than the growth in inflation. Last year the average was like 3.2%. So comparing it with 5.6% growth in incomes, in output, so yeah, it's taken in that context. Even minimum wages, if you look at the average growth in minimum wages for the past 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
in 2022 it was close to 7%, 2023 around, well, still close to 7%, and last year it was like 6%. So there's growth in minimum wages to,
Mm,
well, normally it's closer to the growth in inflation. That's determined tripartite. Now, you know, but but there are sectors in the economy that are not covered by that, especially in the informal sector. They would
mm-hmm.
just feel that the prices, there's still some pickup, although it's not as fast anymore because the standard set by the central bank is 2 to 4%. That's a comfortable level of inflation
Mm.
in for a normal economy. But really statistically, if you accumulate the price increases, they're still high. But now it's at least it's a step in the right direction. It has
Okay.
stabilized already,
All
and
right.
it even warranted the cuts in well, cuts by the central banks like U.S. The Fed already start cutting rates by 100 basis points last year from September till December. And then also BSP cut by a total of 0.75 or 75 basis points from August 15 to December 19 of last year. So yeah, that's the implication for controlling inflation.
Okay. So,
And hopefully it would be felt already.
mhm.
And well, there were and yeah, as long as it's within the 2 to 4%
Mm.
acceptable range. In the US, it's 2% target. Here in the
Mm.
Philippines, it's a range of 2 to
Okay. All
4%.
right.
That would still warrant rate cuts going forward.
Okay. Yeah, I hope the government will achieve the 2 to 4% inflation rate as suggested by the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. Anyway, I would like to switch to another topic, Michael, regarding the labor force survey, particularly the unemployment and employment rate. So the country's unemployment rate declined to 4.3% in January 2025. So that's down from 4.5% recorded last year. And that was on the year-on-year basis. And on the other hand, Michael, if we look at it on a month-to-month basis, the current rate is very high, comparing to 3.1% in December. So my question is, what can the government do to increase employability and reach a double-digit employment rate, and also make the unemployment rate reach at almost 1% on a single digit?
It's it's still decent actually, Sir Jerome. That well, it came from through last December because there are seasonalities involved in the employment data.
Mm.
During the holiday season in December, we have to expect the best data, the lowest unemployment rate in nearly 20 years since revised records started since 2005 at 3.1%. So it went to 4.3%. That's just upon crossing the new year, but it's still better than 4.5% a year ago. Yeah, so it's still decent. It's still among the best levels in nearly 20 years nonetheless. Yeah, that's it came from like a few years ago it was very high. It was like 6-7%.
Mm.
And yeah, this has been the trend. This has been the new normal. Even if it fluctuates between 3 to 4%, that is still favorable. That's still a bright spot for the economy. That could still lead to faster economic growth because
Mm.
you know if you look at the sectors, that's really well, one sector that created a lot of jobs over the years. BPO, the PPO sector. It's now employing about 1.8 million Filipinos. 20 years
Mm.
ago, how much it was employing? It was just 100,000 employees. Imagine in 20 years' time, from 100,000 employees to 1.8 million employees in the BPO sector. Because the Philippines is number 2 in BPO, and the Philippines is in contact center, it's number 1. Um, and the BPO Industry Association, despite AI, potential challenge,
Mm.
the projection is still within, at least for the past 1 to 2 years, the projection is still pointing out towards additional employment of another 700,000 jobs to 2.5 million. And the BPO revenues from $39 billion last year, within around 5 years' time, it would go towards $50 billion. It only came from $1 billion 20 years ago in 2004. Last year, it ended $39 billion.
Mm.
So, that's one of the factors that's driving, well, one of the key catalysts for the improvement structurally in the employment picture. And
Mm.
of course, there are many other industries. If you look at the performances of the biggest conglomerates in the country, they're really doing well. They're posting record incomes despite challenges in the financial markets,
Mm.
volatility in the stock market. But you look at their sales, look at their net income, record highs for the biggest conglomerate. So they're still creating jobs as they expand around the country. Some of them even, yeah, because the growth now is outside Metro Manila, the emerging cities, and that's also partly driven by the outsourcing. You know, the fastest growing regions, the fastest growing provinces, it's the likes of growing more than 10% per year. You have Iloilo, you have Bacolod. You also go to, the BPOs, because the business model there, they save, right? They go to the key cities around the country with
Mm-hmm.
clustering of schools and universities, supply of labor. They go there to realize more cost savings for their clients also, like clients in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
from Australia, New Zealand, from Japan, from Europe. So they realize more savings as they go to the provinces. So it's a win-win for everything.
I see.
It's creating job opportunities around the country
I have a
also. It's
question
not
on
just
that, Michael. You mentioned about the jobs outside of Metro Manila. So, do you think this decentralization of Metro Manila will also help in increasing the employment rate in the country?
Yeah, definitely. We need that because now it's already
Right.
Metro Manila is very congested, and that's really the ideal situation to bring the development to as many regions as possible. So the key driver is
Mm-hmm.
outsourcing. It's creating new office spaces, commercial spaces,
Yep.
residential. High rises being built already in key cities around the country, in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Like you know from far north, the Ilocos region, Baguio, Clark, Calabarzon, then Naga, Iloilo, Bacolod, Dumaguete, Cagayan de Oro, Davao, and so on and so forth. No? So it's driving, those are, well, economic engines that create more jobs. The catalysts are there. And it's not just PPO. You have three main pillars. Actually, it's OFW remittances. That's $40 billion per year.
Mm-hmm.
The consumption is driven in those areas as well. We're the biggest sources of nurses, 20% in the world coming from the Philippines. Seafarers from all over different regions.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, 20 to 25% of all seafarers around the world comes from the Philippines. And
Mm-hmm.
we're the biggest source. So, and they're earning,
Mm-hmm.
OFWs, then BPO. You have a low-hanging fruit. The third pillar, it's tourism. So it's also improving. In fairness, we have seen already improvement in the airports, modernization and expansion of the airports now. And, the country has yet to reach the pre-pandemic numbers on tourism. Last year, it was 5.95 million tourists. Pre-pandemic is like 7 to 8 million.
I see.
And but
Mm-hmm.
the revenues are already at record highs at $13 billion. So that's also another factor that's driving a lot of jobs.
Okay.
No, the tourism sector, especially those outside Metro Manila. It's not just the key tourist destinations around the country.
Mm-hmm.
The beaches and the other tourist spots,
Mm-hmm.
especially uh, from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao also. And there are new developing ones, the
Mm-hmm.
favorite of the foreign tourists. And they create a lot of opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of service jobs, hotels, restaurants, accommodation, transport, all those. And the supply chains in the provinces, also nearby provinces. People tend to flock to, yeah, for instance, in Boracay, major tourist destination, even Cebu. The people from nearby provinces, they travel hours to work there, to do business there, and that's creating a lot of opportunities
Mm-hmm.
also. So that is something
All right.
structural. If you
Mm-hmm.
look at it very well, our key resource is our people,
I see.
because
Mm-hmm.
now, we don't have much land. Unlike other countries, we don't have oil. So our greatest resource is our people. So
Mm-hmm.
remittances for those who wish to be deployed abroad, because aging population. So that's a source of employment, although it's external.
Mm-hmm. I
Uh,
see.
that's nearly 10% of the economy.
Okay.
BPO, for those who opt to stay here, well and good. They stay in their respective regions and provinces, well and good. So that's almost 10% of GDP. And in the tourism sector also, that's more inclusive when it comes to job creation and economic opportunities also. And
Okay.
that's a low-hanging fruit because we have yet to catch up. Our
Mm-hmm.
neighboring countries are
Mm-hmm.
like, in ASEAN and Asia, are like 3 to 5 times higher than us when it comes to tourism numbers. So
Okay.
it's still a low-hanging fruit to create a lot of opportunities, especially job creation and the generation of more opportunities in the country and
And
when it
mhm.
comes to economic growth
Okay,
as well.
and I hope the government, Michael, will do more. I think to expand jobs and create jobs so that it will contribute to the employment rate in the next few months or quarters of the year. Okay, before I proceed to another topic, which is the trade war, but first I would like to ask this, Michael. Do you think the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas should further the cut rate given the current situation?
Yeah, it's possible. Actually, the welcome development, it's a pleasant surprise for inflation at 2.1%. It's at the lower end of the central bank's target. So that gives them more room, more flexibility, more uh, well, at least they have that greater discretion if they wish to cut rates, to cut interest rates, and that would also spur greater economic growth and development because it would lower the cost of borrowings, financing for
Mm-hmm.
consumers, for businesses, government, and other institutions. So it would, it would reverse the rate hikes that we saw over the past 3 years because the
Mm-hmm.
rate hikes were meant not just here, the rate hikes driven by the international central banks like the Fed around the
Mm-hmm.
world practically. We also followed it's to control inflation. That's the main
Mm-hmm.
tool to control inflation interest rates. But now when inflation was a problem, as triggered by the Russia-Ukraine war, so they need to raise rates to slow things down, to
Mm-hmm.
slow the economy. It's deliberately slowing down demand, slowing down economies around the world. You even hear risk of recession in the US,
Mm-hmm.
the economic slowdown in China, which is the world's second biggest economy. It's really meant to
Mm-hmm.
bring down commodity
So, all right.
prices.
So in
And they
short,
already did that. Yeah,
mhm. So in
they
short,
already did that.
yeah. In short, the a cutting interest rate is a weapon against the inflation rate. Is that correct, Michael?
Well, actually, now they have fought inflation well. They were able to bring down already the price of oil. In the world, price of oil is like
Mm-hmm.
among the lowest in 3 years. Other world commodities like sugar, wheat, soybean, corn, they're also among the lowest in 3 to 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been successful with that. It's like stepping on the brakes. You're driving a vehicle, it's driving fast, you have a destination, but suddenly along the way, it becomes dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
There's a need to step on the brake, being able to sustain the travel towards the destination because it's case in point when inflation was a threat, they need to step on the brakes to control inflation. Now they were able to bring down inflation already
I
by way
see.
of higher financing costs. Now, with inflation already within the central bank targets around the world, both here and in the US.
Okay. Mike,
So
going.
they can cut already.
Mhm. So yeah, my last question for this interview, yeah, the Philippines regarding the trade war, the Philippines could gain from the ongoing trade war between the United States and its trading partners by positioning itself as an alternative source of exports to the United States. Since the United States has waged trade war against Canada, Mexico, and China. So how can the Philippines position itself as an alternative source of exports? Or because sooner or later, our President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. will be meeting U.S. President Donald Trump to talk things relevant to U.S. Philippines relations. So how can the Philippines do this?
Think that's also one source of employment, foreign direct investment. So we need to attract them because, we've seen that in the first Trump administration. Uh, it's here in Asia, it's really during the first Trump administration, the focus was on China, the trade war. So the Philippines,
Mm-hmm.
just like any other ASEAN and Asian countries outside of China, they can be alternative locations for foreign direct investments
Uh-huh.
because they could circumvent the higher tariffs. It's only imposed on China for now. So
Mm-hmm.
for them not to pay the higher import tariff, you have global companies, like Apple. Apple is producing mostly in China, then eventually they hedge to India. Now, other exporters out of China, especially global companies companies, they could also consider Philippines as and also to hedge their global supply chain. So that's the one way the Philippines can benefit. Well, but we'll see, because Trump is proposing reciprocal tariffs. So we'll see if it's gonna impact us. But otherwise, that would be the opportunity. Say, if China is exporting, say, products to the US, and they doubled the tariff, the import tax to 20% from 10%. So one way for them to circumvent that is to produce here in the Philippines. Locate here, more foreign direct investments here rather than in China, and export from here. So they would they won't be slapped with the same import taxes as the ones for the US imports from China. So they would say some US firms, US consumers can import directly from the Philippines without import tariff.
Michael, is the Philippines ready for this?
Yeah, actually, because global companies, they have supply chains already in place. So it's a matter of just recalibrating those supply chains, retooling them, because they're hedged actually around the world. No? So that's this biggest company. So it's a matter of repositioning some of their production here in the Philippines. So yeah, so we're ready, because the create more. It would make it more palatable for new locators, either new investments or expansion projects by foreigners. Because it's now more competitive. The corporate income tax for registered business enterprises, those locating in the ecozone, it's down to 20% from 25%. The VAT exemptions are now clear, and they have deductibles on their electricity.
Okay.
It can be deducted from.
All right.
So that's why we're now in a better position to attract. And that only came out like last February, the IRR, the Implementing Goods and Regulations.
Yeah, okay. And I hope
we're in a good position to compete and get more investment.
Okay. I'm afraid we don't have much time for the discussion, and I've learned something interesting things about this regarding the inflation rate, the employment rate, and as well as the trade war. And I hope the Philippines can survive the trade war going on that may affect the global economy. Anyway, thank you so much, Mr. Michael Ricafort, the Chief Economist of the Rizal Commercial Banking Corporation, for joining us in the program. And I hope we will have more discussions regarding this topic soon.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Jerome, and to your viewers, and have a pleasant day, everyone. Thank you.
And that concludes this edition of Front and Center. Together with Radyo Pilipinas World Service Production Team and technical personnel Milo Janela and Hiro Lucero, this is your host, Jerome Toledo. Until next time, mabuhay and love the Philippines.
You have just heard and watched Front and Center. Front and Center. Join us again for another edition here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Front and Center.